Good morning, everybody. Good morning, cows. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, October 5th, 2023. And as I said in my other videos, it looks like we got about 2.5 inches of rain over the course of yesterday and this morning. There's no more rain expected for another week. Thursday we might get a little rain, and Saturday we might get a little rain. So 2.5 inches is great. That's what this field needs. It's a soaking rain. It doesn't look like there's much runoff, if any. The pond, added about 2.5 inches, which to me says that there's not water running off from the field into the pond. Anyway, so today is the last day of this rotation. We got 2 more cells. This is the 6th cell of the 6th section. So we got 1 more cell. Then we're done, and I have to make a decision whether I do another rotation or do I move them to the back 20 to give the field a little longer to rest and recover. And I think I've decided to rotate them 1 more time, at least. No hay yet. I think, this area is okay. It's not great, but given the size of the area and the amount of stuff that I'm seeing, it doesn't look, so really what I need to check is, are they overgrazing? Let's go back to the old area. And let's see if there's signs that they're overgrazing. I want the grass that remains to be, 4 to 6 inches. So the width of my hand. Yeah, so this is like 2 inches, 2 or 3 inches. That's not enough. But there's stuff in between the grass and the goatweed here that suggests that there's still plenty of forage left. They didn't get every square inch of it, and they didn't mow it down too low. So yeah, I think there's enough residue. It should recover fairly quickly. So I'm happy with this. So weather forecast. It looks like the days of 90s are done. We're done with the 90s. We're gonna get probably 3 weeks of 80-degree weather. Some days will be cooler than others. Right now there's a wind blowing from the north. So some days will be cooler than others. Nighttime temperatures are gonna get down to the 50s almost. And then in late October, like the last few days of October, it's gonna start getting down to the 40s. Okay, that's when we have to turn the heater on. Otherwise we will get sick because it'll get too cold at night. The highs are going to be in the 70s for the last part of October, and as far as I can see in November. So we don't see any cold weather coming. It looks like we're still going to get a little bit of rain here and there once a week, more or less. It's hard to tell. Being part of the Great Plains is just like you're on a big empty area where anything can happen. Some places going to get rain, but not necessarily ours. And we saw a whole bunch of rain falling around our little town here. So other areas got a bunch of rain, much more than we did. But we still got our rain. Okay. So another rotation. Yeah. I think that's what I'm going to do. Another rotation, and then see what it looks like then. But I don't think I'm going to break the hay out. I might break the hay out for these southern sections if they look like this when I come back to it. And so I'll be hitting the 3rd section in a week and a half, because each section takes 3.5 days, half a week. So, but that section wasn't too bad. That 4th section wasn't too bad. It's the 5th section that was bad. So I might roll out some hay on the 5th section. And I'm tempted to do it for this section if it doesn't improve. But the 5th section surprised me, how much it recovered. So there were some bad spots. Not that bad though. Well, good times. Yeah, here the grass is pretty decent. Yeah, this section isn't too bad. It could be a lot worse. There's some old patties too. So rain, yeah. So the field now, if we keep getting rain the field's going to change from the dry, solid soil to mud. And the biggest concern there is that we don't tear up the field with the cows moving all about when it's muddy. And one of the protections that the field can do against cows, tearing up the soil, is to have plenty of grass and roots. But the issue is if you tear up the soil anyway, you're basically killing that grass and you have to start over from scratch. It takes a long time to recover those areas, and that's one of the reasons why I think the 5th and 6th sections have trouble spots, is because that's where last year around this time of year we got a lot of rain and the cows turned it into a mud bowl. So hopefully by giving them bigger areas they'll do less damage. That's kind of one of the hopes that I have. Look at this goatweed is dead. I hope the wind isn't interfering too much with the noise. I'll try to turn the camera around here. Oh no, is that shorting out the fence? Let me go check. I don't want the two wires to touch. Yeah, they're touching. Yeah, that's not good. It's going to burn a hole in the wires. So what I need to do is, here, let's take this, let's lower it down. All right. Should be a lot easier to stick in the ground now. There we go. Now there's plenty of room in between the two wires. So, yeah, I don't want those two wires touching. They're both charged and I don't want a current to flow between the two. All right. Today's topic. So, we talked about science and theory. We talked about a lot of things. One of the things I want to talk about, and I don't really know how to approach this topic, and I think it's really important, is the topic of religion, but really not religion. Religion is a discussion about modes and methods and rites and things like that. The thing that I think is more important and the essential part of religion, the part that really, if you strip away religion to everything that's good and useful, and you get rid of everything that isn't as useful. Now, I'm not saying it's not useful. I'm just saying it's not. Rather, those things, they point to this other thing. So there's something that is important in religion, and everything points to that, right? And the important thing is this concept. There's two concepts. They're kind of paired to each other, for better or for worse. The one concept is the concept of belief, right? The other concept is the concept of faith. And we often muddle these two terms together. We don't really understand the difference between the two. So belief is, in my definition, in my dictionary, belief is to believe something is to think that it's true despite evidence or without evidence, right? And you might say, oh, well, belief is bad, don't do that. You should trust in science. Well, science itself is a belief. It's the belief that, oh, there's a doggy. Science is the belief that you can understand the universe. The universe has order, that you can understand the order, and that through experimentation you can uncover where you're wrong, right? It's a belief. It's a belief. There's no justification for science outside of science, right? You have to start believing in science to see that science is good and useful. If you never believed in science, you would never understand why it's so useful and good, right? So science is a belief, right? Other beliefs, I'm trying to avoid the big one. Beliefs that there is such a thing as truth, right? Right, and you might say, well, that's absurd. If the belief is something is true, then the belief that something is true is kind of like saying water is wet or water is water, right? But a lot of people have this belief that nothing's true, that you can't trust anything, and that it's all pointless and why even bother? The universe is random. We're governed by fates that we can't even control our own fate, right? Yeah, that's a belief too, that you can't control anything and why even bother? So the word faith is similar to belief in that faith begins with a belief. Again, a belief is something that you think is true even though you have no evidence or actually contrary evidence, right? There's a lump of hair there. I need to cut this hair out. I need to cut that off. Anyway, so belief is the idea that something's true. Faith is putting your trust. Faith and trust are really the same words. Faith is putting your trust in those ideas and acting upon them. So faith is a principle of action. You can't have faith and do nothing, right? So if I believed that science was true, but I didn't do anything about it or use those scientific principles for anything, if I didn't let it affect my life at all, then it's just a belief. It doesn't have any power, right? And without any power, it doesn't have any effectiveness. And so if I just sit on my couch and say, yeah, I believe science is true, so what? What does that mean? Does it change anything about your life? No, it doesn't. So belief in and of itself is ineffectual and pointless. It's when you pair it with the trust in that belief and you actually start acting according to that belief that you can start to see some kind of effect from it, right? Now, I made a statement a while ago. I don't know if you guys saw the video or not, but the statement is that certain sets of beliefs are good and other sets of beliefs are bad, okay? And by good and bad, I didn't really define what morality is. So I'm going to give you kind of my sketch of what good and bad is. I kind of agree with Nietzsche. So he had this concept where he said that modern Christianity has gone astray because they have flipped morality on its head. They said to be poor is to be rich, to be weak is to be strong, to be ignorant is to be intelligent, right? And I agree with Nietzsche that that's not good, right? Being poor isn't good. Being sick isn't good. Being weak isn't good. Being stupid isn't good. Those aren't good things. Goodness are things that we associate with the more ancient morality, where wealth is good, strength is good, health is good, intelligence is good, education is good. The general rule of thumb for what is good and what is evil in this primitive morality system is that if it sustains, extends, improves life, right? So poor is bad because you can die, right? Being sick is bad because you can die. Being ignorant is bad because you can die, right? And so on and so forth, right? Wealth, intelligence, strength, all tend to improve your chances to survive. And so those things are good. So basically the morality is that life is good, extending and promoting life is good. And obviously things like, large families and getting married and having lots of kids and stuff like that is good, right? Okay, so certain beliefs are good and certain beliefs are bad, right? Certain ideas, remember, beliefs are ideas that you can't prove or that you will accept as true despite the evidence, right? Certain ideas will make you stronger and wealthier and healthier and extend your family and make the family bond stronger. Certain beliefs do that. Other beliefs do the contrary. Right. Okay. We got that? Okay, that's good. Okay. So, beliefs can be good. If beliefs are good, they improve life. If beliefs are bad, they injure life. Right? So, let me give you an example of a belief that is bad, right? So I believe, let's say, hypothetically, that human sacrifice is necessary to sustain agriculture, right? That if we don't slaughter someone each year on an altar and offer up the blood of this murdered person to some imaginary being, that our crops will fail, right? Now you might say, oh, well, of course, we don't want our crops to fail. That would be bad. People would starve and die. And what's one life compared to the life of everybody else? Right? You see the problem here? We're trading one definite life for hypothetical lives, right? And this belief is bad because it causes people to murder and kill, right? Innocent lives, okay? And they're not actually making anybody's life better. It's not actually doing anything to make your crops better. And, the Romans, they realized fairly quickly that such a thing is absurd and stupid. And so they ended the practice of human sacrifice and even waged war on cultures that did it. The Carthaginians, they don't talk a lot about who the Carthaginians were or where they come from or why the Romans fought with them. They tried to make it out like, oh, well, Rome wanted to expand and Carthage was in the way. It's a little bit true, but the reality is that Carthage was on Rome's doorstep every day of the year. And Carthage had some beliefs that you can trace back to the Canaanites of the Bible. And so the Carthaginians were sacrificing their children to various gods. And they were doing other things that the Romans found repugnant to moral order and things like that. And the Carthaginians, they weren't just like, those guys over there that nobody cares about. The Carthaginians were running the entire trade network of the Mediterranean. And so the Carthaginians were showing up in Rome every day with trade goods. And the Romans were talking with these Carthaginians, and there was a cultural exchange happening, more one way than the other. And I believe that the Romans identified the problem of the continued existence of Carthage, right? And they saw the corrupting influence of these people. They might have even seen cults start to arise in Rome that were going back to these forbidden practices like human sacrifice and stuff like that. And so Rome said, enough is enough. We have to stop Carthage. And so they waged an intergenerational war, which eventually they won. And the reason I think why the Romans kept fighting, even though they were obviously losing the war, is because they believed they had to win, that there was no other option. So they continued to persist and fight and rebuild their navies multiple times, all because of the power of beliefs, right? So people say, oh, religion causes all wars. Well, I guess some wars were caused by religion, but most wars were territorial disputes and, things that got out of hand, like, well, you hurt this person, so I hurt that person, and you hurt this person. Next thing you know, we're in a war, right? Territorial disputes is probably the number one reason for wars. So people did fight wars, though, for the beliefs. The beliefs did motivate those wars. Probably the belief that they could win, right? And so that's kind of what happened. You go back to the Odyssey, right? The Trojan Wars. And so my understanding is that some dude from Troy kidnapped some woman. And so the Greeks decided they had to wage, a war on the scale of the entire world. They had to raise an army from every corner of the world just to fight Troy because of this woman. Well, to me, that doesn't make that much sense. People say, oh, she was really beautiful, as a guy, I don't really see the point of fighting somebody else's war just because a woman was really beautiful. Now, on the other hand, if the story was kind of perverted over time and the reality was that they kidnapped this girl, maybe for the purpose of human sacrifice or something like that, and Troy had this perverting influence upon the other cultures, and so regular people were like, hey, we have a problem. These Trojans are causing our children to say and do things that we find to be repugnant. They're affecting our children. And oh, by the way, this latest incident, see what they did, how immoral they are. They want to spread that immorality to our children and corrupt our families. I can see that being a reason to go to war, you know. So anyway, I don't know what the true story of the Trojan War is. We know what's written down in the Odyssey and stuff, of course, and that's the only real good source that we have on that. But I used to keep the dogs here, and they dig those holes. I think because they were hot. They're trying to stay cool. Right, so they dig the holes and then crawl in probably. But also the food was like on top. I think they're trying to get under to get the food because there's ants and stuff in there. Yeah, it was not good. It's not good. Okay, anyway, so the idea that there are certain beliefs that are good, certain beliefs that are bad, beliefs are pointless and useless unless you actually act upon them. That's kind of the guiding principle, I think, that you need to consider and, ponder on, like, what beliefs do I have, and are these beliefs actually good or are they bad? Are these beliefs causing me to extend and improve life, or are they causing me to harm and injure life, right? And that's just a general rule of thumb. What are the beliefs that encourage us to be better people, to work harder, to make more food and shelter and things like that for our families, and have large families, and all that kind of stuff, right? That's something we need to think about. And I think a lot of the discussion that people have in religious debates, it's wasted time. They're arguing about things that really don't matter. When you get into like the esoteric or cryptic interpretations of various things, you kind of lost the interest of me. I really don't see a point in talking about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, right? Oh, this is like wood shavings from somewhere. Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts. Guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.